was Jesus flourishing on the cross? Because Christianity, the reason I ask, Christianity ties together these kind of ideas about suffering, humiliation, grief, sacrifice, and those types of things. Even abandonment can coexist, and even by Jesus' own word, in an abundant life. And so
Right.
here's Jesus on the cross. Is he flourishing?
I would say absolutely not.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely not. I would say the flourish, because, you look at, let's say, this teleological system, right? And there's start, and then there's an end. And then there's the larger, the larger picture, the larger end goal, and even the larger end goal. And I would say, when it comes to theology, especially with Christ and what he did on the cross, I would say that is that's an interesting one, because I'm thinking, there's a means and there's an end, but is that an end um that pretty much will, how does that go? It goes, the end that, in utilitarianism, people usually have a problem with it because the end justifies the means. Or could it be an end that exemplifies, so that he's living virtuously by being obedient on the cross, and he's not flourishing in the sense that he is, actually, you know what? I'm now, you're making me think about what I had said earlier. And now I'm going to retract what I just said. And I would say that in order for him for the sacrifice to be meaningful, for the sacrifice to do what it was intended to do, right? It had a goal, the telos, for him to pay the sins of the world, and for it, because he came into this suffering world, then for him to die, he would flourish in the sense that in the sense that he is suffering, but that suffering is meaningful. That suffering is actually a means to that end. Not that the end justifies it, but that he's actually doing something that looks similar to. So he is glorifying the Father on the cross, and in the end, the end goal is to glorify God, and he's doing that by being obedient to the point of death. So in that sense, I would say yes, but there is something weird and wrong also that sounds when I say that. So I haven't figured that out, but there is something interesting about that. And I would say that there is some aspect of that in that, let's just, if we look at it from the virtue of honoring God, glorifying God, that he is flourishing, but he's also dying. And so maybe that's just part of it, that the dying is, he is being obedient to the point of death, as the verse goes. And so that death is, the obedience is virtuous. Again, he's turning, this idea of happiness on its head. So it's not necessarily, it's a state of being, and it's not necessarily this feeling. So I think I think what is absent and what's wrong about it, what sounds wrong about it, is that there isn't the feeling of flourishing. There isn't the feeling of happy, when you think of happy. And I think that's what I'm just now, because of your question, thank you, is helping me to think through and realize, yeah, it's counterintuitive. It's not what we think of as being happy, and that's because we're on this side of the eschaton. So on the other side of the eschaton, right, eschatology, when um, there's the second coming, then that there's going to be no more suffering. So that that's the goal, the ultimate goal, right? Ultimate telos. But for here in this suffering world, I would say, yeah, he is flourishing. He's definitely not. I would have to qualify that and say he's not. I would say he's definitely not like masochistic. Jesus isn't there going, yes, stick me again or hit me, hit me again. Or he's not even feeling, I would say, even happy. I mean, he says, Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani, my God, why have you forsaken me? So he's feeling this abandonment. He's feeling, I mean, the sin of the world. He's taking on every single person's sin upon himself. So yeah, I would definitely say he's not feeling happy, but I would say he's flourishing.
Well, isn't the whole, even like to your point earlier, and I think your perspective at large, we're talking about virtue, not just pleasure, right? And this is living up to some virtue and not in the face of, I think, the ability to pursue pleasure. I mean, the claim I think would be that Jesus could walk off the cross if he elected to. So we're talking about somebody that totally chooses virtue over pleasure, even when it's totally 100% elective. And not only that, who models the idea that your own self-interest should be subservient to the interests of the greater social good. And I think just when I look at, it's a lot easier for me because I don't carry the metaphysical truth claim. So I look at it almost as social philosophy and modeling for how societies can live together well. And I think Christianity does actually quite a good job of that. It's hard to think of a better framework, flaws and all. So I think that it has to set out, I think, how do we live together? And I think one of the primary things you have to accept if we're going to live together collectively and stably is that you don't put every person doesn't just put themselves in isolation as the top of the pyramid. We all have to understand we're a part of something. So, virtue over pleasure, even when it's elective, and common good versus only self-good in isolation. I think those are two things that are really exemplified in that story or in that event, I should call it.